Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanandi, Namam Vishnupadaya, Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Shamaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaura Vani Pachaline Nirvisesa Sanyavadi Paschachita Satarine. Yes. So, I decided we would continue with our class on low self-esteem, self-love, self-envy. And I wanted to read a letter from Srila Prabhupada, because this letter is a little bit about blaming people and blaming situations, circumstances for our problems. And so Prabhupada deals with this in relation to a devotee who just got married and he wants to leave. Well, he's been married a few years and he wants to leave. And so Prabhupada's addressing the issue of it's not the external situation, it's actually your ability and consciousness. And Prabhupada's saying, see your household situation as a service to Krishna. Not whether you like your wife or don't like your wife, or like the situation or don't like it, but actually it's a service to Krishna. So then you might be thinking, well, how does this relate to low self-esteem? Well, the way it relates is from my experience, I've seen that quite often people who have low self-esteem, especially when it's more severe, then they have a tendency which is stronger than most people's tendency to blame others or blame situations, and it's always everyone else's fault. And probably when self-esteem hits a certain threshold, it's very difficult to admit your own fault, because you kind of live with the feeling that there's something wrong with you. And to have a fault pointed out or to accept responsibility for something going wrong would be difficult, because it would be like putting salt on the wound. Whereas people who have higher self-esteem, it's not a problem to admit they did something wrong, because it doesn't have any effect on them as a person. They don't perceive it that doing something wrong means that I am in any case on my core level wrong or bad or whatever. But if you have low self-esteem, you might think that if you admit or acknowledge that you did something wrong, then that just reconfirms your whole core belief that there's something wrong with you. And so it's very difficult to accept. And to defend yourself or make yourself feel better, then you would blame the other person. No, it's not my fault, it's your fault. I didn't do anything wrong. So, yes. Hare Krishna. Now, somehow or other, I don't know if you can write. It looks like, but the reason, yeah, you can write. We have, Facebook's doing a crazy thing today where normally I can read what you say, but now your writing is going vertically instead of horizontally. So if I were to read it, I'd have to go like this. So if you see me going like that, it's not that my neck hurts or I have some spasm, it's just that I would need to go this way to read. So the letter that I'd like to read today from Srila Prabhupada, it's not addressing the issue of low self-esteem. Prabhupada never directly addressed it. He only, as we've discussed, indirectly addressed it in terms of taking care of yourself in your spiritual life, and we translated that as self-care means self-love, and not caring for yourself or your spiritual life means self-hatred, or the word Prabhupada used, self-envy. If you don't take care of your spiritual life, that term self-envy is used. That it's envy in the sense that it's used in Sanskrit is destruction. Self-envy would be self-destruction. You're destroying yourself. You can envy other living entities and do something destructive to them. So in that sense, Prabhupada said, not being Krishna conscious, not taking care of our Krishna conscious is self-destruction spiritually. So everything in this letter does not relate exactly to the topic of low self-esteem. What it does relate to is the topic of responsibility and blame, which, as I said, is a symptom of those who have low self-esteem. They tend to expect more from people than people would normally give. They tend to blame people when people don't live up to those expectations. They tend to blame others for their failures as a means, as I said, to protect themselves from feeling bad about themselves, which that's their core belief, that there's something wrong with them. And so to acknowledge something's their fault reinforces that concept that there's something wrong with them, and they have a defense mechanism. So that defense mechanism is that if you say something's wrong, they'll immediately reject. They won't accept it. And unfortunately, when those people need to be corrected, there's no way to get in because they have this defense mechanism, because they feel that any kind of correction is an attack on them, attack on their ego, an attack on their sense of self, and their sense of self is so low. So that is a problem in Krishna consciousness and spiritual life if you can't hear. Of course, if you don't think, if you're hearing Bhagavatam, you're hearing classes and so forth, and you don't relate it to you personally as the speaker is talking to you that you have this problem, yes, you can hear. But if you're being instructed by someone who is trying to point out a defect, obviously it's to you, it's not a general principle, then you close up. And why is that a problem? Because when one accepts a guru, part of the job of the guru is to correct the disciples. So sometimes there has to be instructions which explain to the disciple that what you did is wrong, or even within a temple situation. Sometimes the temple president has to explain in the course of service, no, what you did was wrong, the service should be done this way, or the way you acted upset devotees, please don't act this way, and so forth. You have to be instructed practically to live within a community, to function well, or to accept a spiritual master will correct you. And so if we have low self-esteem, there may be a tendency for the defense mechanism to go off, and then we can't hear, or we just deny, no, you're wrong. So your guru tells you something, say, no, you're wrong. Now, sometimes you may have a discussion with your guru and say, well, Guru Maharaj, actually the situation was like this and that, and my realization was this and that, and therefore it's difficult for me to understand what you're saying because this and that. And then the guru may hear that and say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't understand the entire context, and how you're thinking is, yeah, it makes sense, it's okay. Or he may say, no, my point remains. Your thinking was wrong. You need to understand this point. So someone with very low self-esteem, or a certain kind of low self-esteem, may remain defensive and in denial. No, my guru doesn't understand, he's wrong. Because if he were right, that means I'm wrong. And maybe the issue that you're dealing with is so heavy or intense, you just can't admit that, to accept that you're wrong, or to accept that the situation is a particular way, would be devastating. So you just, no, he's wrong, he doesn't understand, etc., etc. So that's a problem in the surrendering process and the hearing process, if we have built-in defense mechanisms to defend our ego because we have such a low estimation of ourselves. We can't bear to tolerate anybody telling us there's anything wrong with us. And obviously, we're not perfect, and obviously we need to be instructed. And I don't say that these people who have this issue can't be instructed, but in certain areas, sometimes they can't be, and that's unfortunate. And what's most unfortunate in Vaishnav circles is that some of this psychological problem can manifest in Vaishnava aparad. And so, however Vaishnava aparad manifests, it's not good for us. So even if it's a psychological problem, it's a defense issue, I argue with you, I can't agree with you, I have expectations of you which you can't fulfill, but it comes out in harsh words towards that person or critical words, it's offensive, even though maybe your motive or the source of your offense is just to try to maintain your own sanity and sense of self. Still, the reality is it's offensive, and it will affect you, and it will affect your relationships, and it will affect your ability to work with devotees, and it will affect your ability, in some cases, to be able to follow the orders of Srila Prabhupada and your spiritual master. So that's the problem. So, okay. I just want to see if, yeah, okay. According to me, yeah, the chat is working, so if you want to say something, I'll just bend over. Okay, so let's read. This letter, I recommend you read it. You can make a note of it. It is written on January 4th, 1973. This amazing letter, one of the most amazing letters Prabhupada has ever written, and completely relevant and practical to the Grihastha ashram and to the concept of responsibility and dedication to service and dealing with different broadcast is going on and off. So I was, for those of you, the broadcast just went off a little bit. This letter is written to Madhukara, January 4th, 1973, if you want to look it up. And Krishna Karshini sent me a text and quoted from this letter, and she reminded me of this text, of this letter, and it reminded me of how it's appropriate for the present discussion. So, we should never think our so-called advancement as being conditioned by or dependent upon some set of material situations, such as marriage, vanaprast, this or that. The context of this is the devotee was finding it difficult to be Krishna conscious in marriage, and he asked Prabhupada if he could take sannyas. So, Prabhupada's point is that you should understand that the external conditions are not, you can't blame external conditions for your not being Krishna conscious. I'm going to, the problem is my wife is listening to class, and I think the class is about to end. I'm just going to ask her if she can turn it off, because otherwise it's just going to go on and off all the time. Just it's totally amazing that in America we have such bad internet, and super expensive also. It's like one phone and internet, like $70 a month. And to upgrade 80, and then to put another one in my office, another 80. So I'm trying to find a solution to this by getting a different carrier for my phone, and then seeing if that's powerful enough. Because the last carrier I had, it wasn't powerful enough. So, just wait a moment, like 1 minute maximum, and I'm just going to ask her if she can turn it off. Okay. Oh, look at the sun. When I came out here, it was cloudy. I was anticipating sun because obviously it's a little hard for me to see. Okay, my wife has turned it off, so we shouldn't have a problem. So, we should never think our so-called advancement is being conditioned by or dependent upon some set of material circumstances such as marriage, vanaprastha, this or that. Mature understanding of Krishna consciousness means that whatever condition of life I am in at present, that is Krishna's special mercy upon me. Therefore, let me take advantage in the best way possible to spread this Krishna consciousness movement and conduct my spiritual master's mission. So, next point. First point, we're not dependent on material circumstances. I need sunglasses to broadcast here. Let me move this here, so I'm not looking right in the sun. So, yeah, I think when normally you do this, you have umbrellas to cover. You know, we have clouds work like at umbrellas. So, what did Prabhupada say? So, whatever the circumstances, I can be Krishna conscious, and then whatever the circumstances is, that's Krishna's mercy upon me. That's the situation he wants me in. And what does it mean, Krishna's mercy upon me? That situation will actually help me become Krishna conscious. That's what it means. Like, you know, the problem we have is we look at a situation, we rate the value of a situation based on how much sense gratification we get, how much we like it, how much it makes us feel good, isn't it? So when you look at a situation and you look at it and thinking, this situation doesn't make me happy. I'm not getting any sense gratification from it. Actually, I don't even like it. And so we think, bad situation, I should get out of this. This is a bad situation. This is affecting my Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada's saying, the problem is we're evaluating the situation on the basis of how we like it and we don't like it. And the situation which is not good actually may be like the best thing for your spiritual life. And the situation that's good may not be. The situation you like may not always be the best thing. It may make you lazy. You know, one devotee wrote me, he said that he was going through a situation where life was challenging and difficult, and he was praying a lot, and now that situation has subsided, and he's not praying so much. He said he was actually more Krishna conscious when it's difficult, and I think that's what Prabhupada means here, or at least one of the things he means, is that, you know, Krishna's put me in a certain situation due to my karma, or whatever the reason is, due to the whatever, we don't always understand. Krishna's put me in that situation, and I think, okay, it's Krishna's mercy. And what we find is that oftentimes the difficult situations, the situations we don't like, are often the best for our spiritual life. Because it just, one devotee just wrote me, and he said that he was going through challenges, and he's working very hard to set up a business, and it takes time, and so on and so forth. And one of the conclusions from this situation was, I just feel like going back to Godhead. Like this is too much trouble. And yeah, it is. It is trouble maintaining your material existence. That's why in the heavenly planets they don't have that trouble. That's part of what it means to be on the earthly planet. You know, a lot of these people you see, you know, wealthy people, you see them online, follow my course, you'll make a lot of money, I've made a lot of money. These people are like, as soon as they get up, they start working, and they just work all day. That's what they do, you know. And so, you know, you want to be rich, you want to get ahead. Yeah, are you willing to do that? No. And if you are willing to do that, something's wrong with you. We don't live that lifestyle. So, when you're living that lifestyle, working in the world, starting a business, trying to compete with the other people who live that lifestyle, it naturally doesn't fit, and it's just frustrating. And I'd just rather go back to Godhead. So, in that sense, that struggle in the material world is good for us. Now, let's say there was no struggle. You know, things were like, great. Yeah, you know, I just work a few hours a day, and I make enough money, and everything's great. Yeah. If you're a pure devotee, that's perfect, because you will utilize all your time to preach. But if you're not a pure devotee, you work a few hours, everything's great, no problems, that's going to be an obstacle I would say, I don't want to say for every single devotee who's not a pure devotee yet, that's going to be an obstacle. But it's going to be an obstacle for most of us until at least we're further advanced, because we are conditioned to enjoy. That's just how we are. And when things are easy and nice, then we become slack. So Prabhupada's saying whatever situation is Krishna's mercy, what I would suggest is, if you can't understand how it's Krishna's mercy, just ask yourself the question, okay, this situation is driving me crazy, it's putting me in stress and anxiety. If I could get out of it, I would. And now Prabhupada says it's Krishna's mercy, so let me ask myself the question, how is it Krishna's mercy? Let me answer that question. In what ways is this Krishna's mercy? That's an important question, because Prabhupada's saying it is, and if it is, and he wants us to see everything as Krishna's mercy. So that being the case, we have clouds now. Clouds are very good for outdoor videos. That being the case, then I should consider how it's Krishna's mercy. Write it down, think about it. That way it's easier to deal with the situation, because instead of seeing it as I don't like it, it doesn't make me happy, I can see this is good for my spiritual life. See, the other thing is, if we want to go back to Godhead, if we want to become Krishna conscious, then we can't evaluate things in terms of how I like or don't like them. I have to evaluate things in terms of how this is helpful for my spiritual life, and how is this pleasing or not pleasing to Krishna. So when we evaluate according to what we like and don't like, then we have trouble. When I don't like this, I can't do it. Now in some cases, as we've said, it's just you're in the wrong varna. You know, you're supposed to do business, but you're not a business person. You're not going to like it. So that's a little bit, in a sense, of a different issue, because in this situation, in this context, he's a grihasta. He's not really qualified to be a sannyasi. So he's in the right ashram. He's just finding that ashram difficult. So let's make the assumption you're in the right ashram and you're in the right varna. But then you're getting mental. Then this discussion will relate to you. Okay. Excuse me, but if somebody could figure out why it's going vertically instead of horizontally, when for the last 3 years it always went horizontally. So I have to bend over to read it. Can you turn the camera 90 degrees to the left? All right, let's see. Maybe everything is weird now. You mean like this? You want it like that? Yeah, then I can read everything. Okay. Hold on a second. I have to change some things. So you're going to look at the ceiling right now. Meditate on the ceiling, and I have to do something in order that hold on a second. Oh no, it's not working. I can't do it. That means this whole thing is not working properly. Wow, amazing. Life is so amazing. As I told you, I am not an engineer, and this is just supposed to come up. You loosen it, and it comes up, and I've loosened it, and it's not coming up. So, unfortunately, the only way we can do it like this is I have to hold it, or maybe slant this back a little bit, and hopefully it won't fall, which I'm sure it will. Let's try that. This is dangerous. Hare Krishna. Well, this is the best I can do. Is that okay? So now where? Oh, I'm looking at you up there. Oh my God. This is really weird. Anyway, we'll try to do this. We'll try to do this way. This is better? So I put the recording on pause. So let me say what Prabhupada said. He said, think of every situation as Krishna's mercy, and then I mentioned that if every situation is Krishna's mercy, then we have to ask how, because it doesn't always seem as Krishna's mercy. We think if things are like really good, I'm happy, weather's good, everybody loves me, I get good prasadam, a lot of material comfort, and, then I think Krishna's mercy. But not necessarily Krishna's material mercy, but spiritual mercy it may not be. And sometimes Krishna knows what we need, so materially he makes things a little difficult, just so we remain detached. You know, if everything goes perfectly, we become more attached. That's natural. Become attached to things that give you pleasure. So sometimes we need things to be a little shaky and disturbing because it keeps us detached, right? So, okay, now I can read what you said. Oh, this is weird. Why Facebook is not doing what's normal? Don't you love technology? Like one day it works and one day it doesn't work. I was just doing a recording in my studio, a video. So I have this microphone and really good system to amplify the mic. So I put it through the system and it sounds horrible. But it sounded good a few minutes before when I did it. Don't you just love that? It's like all of a sudden it works differently and you can't figure out why. And sometimes there is no reason, and sometimes there is a reason, and you don't realize that you hit the wrong button, and you figure that out like 12 years later. Life is just amazing. And these are the kind of things that make us think, I just want to get out of the material world. It's too complicated. It's too weird. So that's good. So if things are difficult and you become detached, that's good. And there's a higher stage where you don't care. You're just like, whatever, I want to preach, I want to serve Krishna. And so, but until you come to that stage, then the stage is, okay, if this detaches you, that's good. So at least that's one answer to the question, how is it Krishna's mercy? It's Krishna's mercy because this situation I'm in is difficult or frustrating or whatever it is, and it's detaching me. And there's no way I would become detached from this if this situation were going well. As I've often said, how many of us would be devotees if our lives were just perfect? Would we even ask the question, why is life not perfect? If life were always perfect, where would the question even come from? Right? So, we can continue reading this amazing letter. Okay. But your understanding of Krishna consciousness means that whatever condition of life I am in at present, that is Krishna's special mercy upon me. Therefore, let me take advantage in the best way possible to spread this Krishna consciousness movement and conduct my spiritual master's mission. In other words, don't get deterred by the present situation. Oh, I have a brilliant idea. Why didn't I think of this? I just bring this down. We come down to earth, right? Sometimes my brain, it takes time to kick in. It's not perfect, but it's better. Yeah. Okay. If I consider my own personal progress or happiness or any other thing personal, that is material consideration. Personal progress, material progress, not spiritual progress. Although sometimes even the consideration of spiritual progress could be material, because it's, I don't like doing this, I don't like being married, I'm not happy. So it's not good for my spiritual life, let me give it up. That sense is Prabhupada is referring. And at any kind of material happiness in general, I don't like this situation, I'm not happy. Now, sometimes situations are such that they need to be changed because it's a toxic environment or it's detrimental to the devotional service. Now, Prabhupada does not see this situation as detrimental to devotional service. There are, you're living with your parents, they hate Krishna consciousness, they eat meat, you have no pots to cook in, this and that, Obviously, that could have an ill effect on your Krishna consciousness. But that's not what Prabhupada's talking about here. He's living with a devotee. She's a devotee. And so how is that bad for your Krishna consciousness? That's because of the way you're thinking. So I don't want to say there are no toxic environments. Yeah, if you're living in a house full of non-devotees, that's not a good environment, and that will affect you. So Prabhupada's not saying you can't blame a material circumstance in the sense of a circumstance that objectively is toxic and detrimental to your bhakti. He's talking about a situation that isn't, that you think it is, then you're blaming it. Or like, there are many situations we go through that we say, I can't be Krishna conscious in this situation. And so my question is to you, is that absolutely true? I think in some situations the answer would be yes, it is. This is, I have no time to chat my rounds. I'm with people who have a very bad influence on me. It's okay. That obviously is a different scenario than Prabhupada's talking about here. But if it's not a toxic environment and you think it's toxic, you need to ask yourself the question: is it actually the environment, or is it me? How I'm relating to the environment? That's the point. Okay. So Radhika has a question. I've read that once one starts live video vertical or horizontal, it's going to stay that way. Change orientation, one has to. No, but I started vertical. So, technology. For how many years I've been doing this? This is the first time this has happened. Amazing. Life is amazing. When starting the live feed says ways you can turn the phone and videos. Stays. Anyway, the Facebook didn't realize the video was sideways, did they? They realized it's vertical. Anyway, we'll deal with it. You don't have to see what's on the side. Okay. So the next point Prabhupada's making is, anytime you're thinking, well, if I did this, I'd be happy. If it's not in relationship with Krishna, like if I did this, it would be a good for my Krishna consciousness. If I did this, my body would be happy, my mind would be happy. That's material consideration. Now, as we've said before, sometimes those material considerations, if they're in relation to Krishna, can be valid. In other words, if I have this facility and that facility, I can better serve Krishna. In this situation, I'm too disturbed. But Prabhupada's talking more here about this person is, I just don't like being married. It doesn't make me happy. And Prabhupada's saying, but you vowed to do this, so this is not something you give up lightly. No, it's not making me happy. If I take sannyasa, I'll be happy. So Prabhupada's seeing the mentality that this person doesn't understand. That's not what sannyasa is. Sannyasa doesn't mean renouncing something because it doesn't make you happy. Because later in the letter, Prabhupada said, you'll take sannyas, and then you'll find that doesn't make you happy. So then you'll give that up and marry somebody else. You see? So it's like, does this make me happy? No. Okay, let's try this. Does this make me happy? No. Let's try that. That's the mentality Prabhupada's dealing with. And the reason we're reading this, as I said earlier, is that if there's a tendency for low self-esteem, there's a tendency to blame. So every time something doesn't work out, the person will find someone or some situation to blame. And so Prabhupada is saying, if that's your mentality, you're just going to go from one thing to another because you're going to blame everything. It's because nothing's ever your fault. Because it can't be your fault. Because if it's your fault, you will be devastated by thinking like that. Because you're already fairly devastated by how you think of yourself. Either you're not good enough, or you're not, you'll never be good enough, or something similar to that. So, if you blame somebody for your own failing, then you don't have to deal with this, I'm not good enough. No, they're not good enough. It's nothing to do with me. So then I don't feel bad about myself. Right? So it's something to be aware of. I don't know if you all have ever experienced that or feel that. Even if you don't feel it, you may recognize it in others, and perhaps by understanding this, you'll be able to help them. If there was unhappy adjustment for becoming married, why you got married at all? Whatever's done is done. That is a fact. But I'm only pointing out that once before you did something without proper study of your real responsibility. Now you're contemplating again some drastic action in a similar manner. Therefore, consider it carefully in this light. In other words, if we're whimsical, well, this doesn't make me happy, I'll go here. This is not good for my Krishna consciousness, I'll go here. If we're whimsical, Prabhupada's saying, where is it going to end? You'll always be thinking your Krishna consciousness depends on other situations and people. If it doesn't work, you'll always find something in the situation to blame or somebody to blame. And Prabhupada's saying, no, if you accept everything as Krishna's mercy, then you'll figure out how to be Krishna conscious in those situations, rather than blame other people. Does that make sense? It's really, I think it's important for us, if we do blame another person or we do blame another situation, to ask ourselves the question, why am I blaming them for my reaction or my problem? Or is it actually them, or is it really me? Now, if someone comes at you with a gun and that scares you, I think you could blame the other person and say, you scare me. Because guns are scary, especially when they're loaded and pointed at you. So we're not talking about a situation like a situation where everyone in the universe would react exactly as you're reacting because of a dangerous situation or something. You're freaking out because there's a hurricane and the roof's coming off your roof. The roof's coming off. Okay. You can freak out. I'll give you permission. It's okay. That's a circumstance where you're allowed to freak out. But Prabhupada here is talking about ordinary situations where our response is to blame. You can blame the hurricane if your roof falls off. That's okay. It is the hurricane. You didn't have anything to do with the hurricane, at least not directly. But in other scenarios, when we're blaming, it's nice, introspective to ask, why am I blaming this person? Is it me? Is it something about me? Or is it actually 100% about them? Now, Prabhupada's going to say something to answer that question. It's very heavy and very powerful. I lost it. You say that your association together was hindering your advancement. I'm skipping the letter now. But Krishna conscious marriage system should not be taken that way. That if there is any botheration, that means something is hindering my spiritual progress. Once it is adopted, grihastha life, even it may be troublesome at times, it must be fulfilled as my occupational duty. So, the point that I was coming up to, what I wanted to read, I lost it in scrolling. But this is another good point. Krishna moved my fingers to this point. That's what's going on. So, the Prabhupada saying, and this was very common, and people would get married, they would find it difficult to be Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada saying, you know, the marriage ashram, it's a shift from brahmacharya ashram. It's a whole new environment and a whole new set of circumstances and challenges and difficulties. And okay, so now what do? Oh, you just run away. That's the solution. So Prabhupada's saying, no, you don't take it that way. You face it and you deal with it. Prabhupada is basically saying to this devotee, grow up. He was about 25 when he wrote this letter, and Prabhupada's saying, grow up. You know, you're in a challenging situation, so what? You know, I mean, Prabhupada is not using those words. Those are the words we use, but I think it might be helpful to use those words, because essentially that's what Prabhupada is saying. So the situation is difficult, so what? Does that mean you run away from it? No. Does that mean you blame the situation, you blame the person? No. Grow up, deal with it. It's not the situation, it's you. So, anytime we're in a situation where we sense it's not really the situation because other people are not disturbed by the situation like I am, then we ask the question, okay, so what is it about me that I can't deal with this? What's going on in me? And how can I see it in a different way? How can I improve myself? Yes. And Prabhupada said, you know, you got married, so it would have been simpler if you didn't, but now you're married, so you have to take care of your wife. You can't just leave her. You know, that's common sense. And Prabhupada's dealing, in a lot of this letter, dealing on a very low level. Like, you're married, you have a 1-year-old son. Hello, anybody home? You want to take sannyas? It's like that level of consciousness. But that level of consciousness was quite common in those days. I remember you said once that test for Krishna consciousness is not what? Because it's easy to look for Krishna's shelter in distress, but when success is coming, we are having more trouble. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I think as you progress in spiritual life, you'll realize that the most advancement you made was at the most difficult times, and that the times that are really done nicely, the things are going well, are not always the times that you've made the most advancement. Until you reach a certain stage of bhakti, it's like you need to be kicked and pushed, and things need to be a little spicy, just to keep you moving. And conditioned nature is like our desire to enjoy. It's so deeply rooted that until we're at least on the stage of anartha nivritti or nistha, that tendency to enjoy can just, if the right environment is there, it can just overwhelm us and make us very passionate or very lazy in our spiritual lives. So, if things are difficult, Krishna's mercy. Yes? How is it Krishna's mercy? It detaches us. I told this story before. I was temple president. This situation was very, very difficult. Not difficult in the sense of moving matter, getting things done, but difficult in the sense of getting devotees to work together. It was like, I don't know how to explain it. But imagine there was a virus. And the virus made it impossible for people to work together. And no matter how much you talked about cooperation, no matter how much you reasoned with people, no matter how much you got people together and say, hug and kiss, pay obeisances, glorify one another, appreciate one another, no matter how much you said that, no matter how many classes you did, no matter how good your strategies were to accomplish cooperation, It was like there was a virus that interfered in the process, and it always turned just the opposite of what I was trying to do. And I was actually thinking at that point, it would be really nice to go back to Godhead, like right now, so I don't have to deal with this anymore, because I can't take this. I've never been in a situation where human beings were acting like this, where nothing works, where they just, like they're pre-programmed to not get along, to not listen, to not respect one another. And so then I was thinking, I said, well, actually, this is probably a good situation for me to be in, because I'm completely detached. I mean, if someone came up to me right now, when I was in that situation with a gun and says, I hate you, I'd go, shoot, I'm ready. Just give me one mantra and then shoot me. I'm serious. I had no desire to stay and live another day to deal with that situation. Of course, I was dealing with that situation in Prabhupada's service, so the sweetness of that service kept me going. But the existential experience of that situation was such that honestly, it would have been very easy to leave my body without regrets in that situation. So then I realized, well, that was a great situation for me to be in. Not that I'd actually want to go back to it, but it was a great situation. Now, another realization I had, that was 25 years ago. So in the 25 years, that's given me time to work on my Krishna consciousness and gain some taste and remove some anarthas. And so now I realize that even in nice situations, I still, even if I'm in nice situations, I still feel like, yeah, I don't like staying in the world. I'm ready to go back to Godhead if that's what Krishna wants. I'm ready to stay here and serve. But this situation we're talking about is when we feel very detached when things are difficult, and we feel very, quote-unquote, satisfied when things are nice, not so impelled in our spiritual life. It doesn't affect me like it used to. And so that was my point, that if you evolve further in your spiritual life, Krishna could give you everything. And it's not really a test anymore, because when Krishna gives you everything, you just use it. But when you're a younger devotee, when Krishna gives you everything, it's a big test. Because when Krishna gives you honor or wealth or whatever, because the seed of that desire is still there, that's why it's a test. Because you're like, oh no, this is what I always wanted, Krishna's testing me. But when you're above that, it's no longer a test. It's like, thank you, Krishna, for giving me this facility. I can use it. Oh, you've given me fame. Perfect. Now people will listen to me because I'm famous. They'll actually take me seriously. And I can influence people more. So, fortunately or unfortunately, whatever the case may be, my wife had arranged a breakfast. We were invited to some devotee's home. And we're actually supposed to leave 15 minutes ago, and she just came out, 20 minutes ago, and she just came out and gave me that look like, we're supposed to go now. Why are you still giving class? You know that look, right? Well, if you're a man, you know that look. So, maybe she didn't give me that look. Maybe she gave me a nice look, like, honey, it's time to go. I don't want to say she gave me that look. But she gave me a look that indicated it's time to go. So we will see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. because I'm giving class at 10, so we'll do the class tomorrow at 8 a.m. and then we can continue the discussion. And Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.